We are celebrating the extraordinary life and legacy of Dr. Don Mattera, literary giant and activist, and of course a beloved South African treasure. The day they came for our house, it's a poignant exhibition that honors the enduring impact of Don, the Zinga, Toppie, a man whose remarkable journey as a poet and author and a champion of social justice continues to inspire generations. So the special activation, it is a collaboration between the Don Mattera Legacy Foundation, the Dr AB Xuma Museum, the Wits History Workshop, and Heritage Nexus. Invites you to experience the power of Don Mattera's legacy and, of course, the ongoing pursuit of his vision for a more just and equitable society. So joining us here in studio this morning is Dr. Teddy Mattera, board member of the Don Mattera Legacy Foundation. Perhaps to tell us a little bit more about the exhibition. Dr. Teddy, good morning. Thanks for making time to be here.
Lizdl, thank you so much for having us. You guys are great.
Thank you for continuing to keep his work alive. It becomes so much more relevant in this day and age, given the dynamics unfolding, and perhaps we can understand where we're going by understanding where we come from. So talk to us about the importance of the foundation's work.
Our primary focus is to promote, preserve, and to actually sort of continue Don Mattera's work, you know, as an activist, a humanitarian, a journalist like yourself, a community leader, a sports aficionado, so many attributes that can be ascribed to him, but more than anything, a compassionate human being.
Yes. Who spoke up for the marginalized, who fought for justice and equity, used these words to perhaps fight on behalf of everyone else. And I wonder if we're looking at some of those initiatives that the foundation is undergoing, this exhibition being one of them. Talk to us about the importance of it and how it's managing to keep his legacy alive through those means.
So our focus is generally to look at the communities in which he worked.
Yes.
The community of journalists, the community of people, the marginalized, the community of indigenous peoples, the communities of various, I think, other interested groups in promoting a kind of humanitarian society. So literacy is a big one for us. And interestingly enough, you just had a guest who spoke to that. So kudos to her for that. Our annual lecture, which we have, and changing that format slightly, we are finally embracing technology and looking at how we might be able to even sort of resurrect the voice of Don Mattera through AI and using that to kind of excel, you know, the program of literacy, considering the dire need for it in our communities.
Yeah.
The issues of violence in our communities. Many of us sort of watch and are affected by it. And so we work in Westbury, El Dorado Park, Esterus, Tukomsrus, surrounding townships within Soweto also.
Yeah.
Our philosophy is fundamentally continuing, embracing and promoting what Don Mattera was, or is, I should say.
Yes,
you know,
because his spirit lives on.
It lives within us, all of us. And of course, you know, there's also the Mattera family, you know, ons Baya.
And it multiplied.
And so through the siblings, we've managed to reach our tentacles across our extended families. Even sort of as far as Italy, where our great-grandfather hails from, the Eastern Cape, and the various generations of family that cover us. So we're a broad umbrella of people trying to change the world, but also trying to change ourselves too.
So the exhibition, The Day They Came for Our Heroes, talk to us about what's behind that, what's also being evoked as we take a trip down memory lane.
The Day They Came for Our House is actually the name of a poem by Don Mattera, where he animatedly speaks to how the destruction of our family house in Sophiatown engendered this kind of painful experience of him, his grandfather, the family, watching the bulldozers tear down the house. And he speaks of, you know, the walls bleeding, you know, the roof collapsing, in tears almost. And in that way, the many families that were affected by it, this exhibition, through the interviews and oral testimonies of people who were there yesterday, actually accounted for what had happened. And in the context of where we are today, how critically important is it that we recognize and remember those who had been forcefully removed.
Absolutely. Displacement, correcting the injustices of the past. Again, to your point about identity, language, empowerment through literacy skills as well. I wanted to touch on another important point, him having founded the Union of Black Journalists. In an era of misinformation and disinformation, that also becomes very pertinent. Perhaps you could weigh in on the role of the media in a South African context.
Sure. I mean, I'm a filmmaker myself and an academic, and I realize that importance with a really critical eye in the context of an apartheid society, and how black journalists, who ultimately were the voice of the oppressed, who gave face to the silent voices, who kind of gave expression to the cultural struggle, right? Percy Qoboza, Alf Kumalo. I mean, there's a legion of them, you know, including the women who kind of went unnoticed in that whole episode. So that union, I think, came together to be able to justify, recognize, and firmly place black journalism on the landscape of an oppressive society.
Yes.
And that was really what his intention was.
What about restoring agency as well? Perhaps completing the story of the world by adding ours.
Of course. I mean, the question of agency is probably the most important, because what it does for us, it tells us and gives expression to who we are, right? Yes. And tells the world, we announce ourselves. Ons is hier, ons pola, ons dak nie, you know. So that's really what, and that's inscribed in the history of Sophiatown, of District 6, of all the other places that are not spoken about, because there are many other Sophiatowns in our country, Palestine being one of them, right? And we don't see that, and we don't recognize that. And this is the importance of this journey that will be taken this morning at 6 o'clock, or just after 6, from the Trevor Huddleston Museum into Meadowlands. You know, the people have remembered that journey.
Yeah, so Sophiatown was archived through his words and through his eyes, through his lens as well. Knowing what he stood for, how do you think he wanted to be remembered? Because he was humble, and it wasn't about him. It was about being the vessel.
The truth about it is that, you know, upon reflection, looking back at, it's a very difficult thing to do, sort of looking at Don Mattera without being his child, or one of his children, all of us, right? Is that he was a human being, a man who had his faults, an important thing to mention, but also somebody who had great humility for the existence of others. And I think that's important. It's an important feature in the way that we speak about each other in South Africa. And what he emulated, I think, and stood for was the accounts that people gave yesterday brought tears to my eyes about how deliberately he would go around and try everywhere, Zinga, and he'd say, Milaiti, here's Zak for you, here's some cash for you, buy some food, or ma'am, here's something for your children. And that generosity feeds into our family, feeds into the organizations that we work with, and it kind of lets us know that somewhere in this malaise, in this milieu of madness that we're currently embraced by, there's humanity that still exists amongst us.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing to remember. So in remembering Sophiatown, we actually give agency to ourselves today.
Yes. And he made us, well, he made South Africa and made the marginalized feel seen, heard, and that they matter. Yeah. I'm being told that time is up, so we're going to leave the conversation there. Thank you very much for joining us. Perhaps you can just rehash some of the details around the exhibition as we conclude.
Yes, the exhibition continues for the next 3 months. It's at the Trevor Huddleston Museum in the AB Xuma Museum, which is housed there. And it's a snippet of what is to come. We're probably going to be going, not probably, we will be going on a national campaign with this, making it mobile for everyone.
Yes, it will continue to be a conversation start as we navigate the next 30 years and beyond. But thank you very much, Dr. Teddy Mattera, again, board member of the Don Mattera Legacy Foundation, chatting about the day they came for our house. It's obviously a small exhibition that really just celebrates the life, the work, and enduring legacy of South African treasure, poet, and award-winning author, Dr. Don Mattera.